The war room of the Crithian Imperial Dreadnought, Eternal Dominion, hummed with the sterile efficiency of 1,000 subordinate species labor. Admiral Ziegther stood before the holographic display, his 4 eyes narrowing at the impossible data streaming across crystalline screens. Behind him, the conclave of subjugation representatives from 17 conquered civilizations waited in fearful silence. "Impossible," Ziegther hissed, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "The humans were broken. We watched their cities burn. We saw their fleets scatter like frightened prey." Commander Elsa Reeves didn't knock before entering the Crithian strategy chamber. She simply walked through the force field as if it were morning mist, her combat armor phasing through frequencies the Crithians had believed were impenetrable. Behind her, the neural interface implanted at the base of her skull glowed with soft blue light, a gift from humanity's new benefactors. Or perhaps its oldest children. "You're right," Elsa said, her voice cutting through the chamber like a plasma blade. "You did break us. 7 billion dead in the first year. Another 3 billion in the camps. You turned Earth into a monument to your superiority." Ziegther reached for his weapon, but his hand froze mid-motion. Harry Shun materialized beside Elsa, his form resolving from quantum probability into solid matter. The young physicist wore the same armor as Elsa, but his eyes held something the Crithians had never seen in prey species pity. "The thing about humans," Harry continued, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface only he could see, "is that we're really, really good at learning from our mistakes. And you made the mistake of leaving some of us alive?" The holographic display behind Ziegther flickered, then changed. Instead of showing the routine subjugation reports from Earth's radioactive surface, it now displayed something that made the Admiral's blood run cold: 17 worlds. The 17 founding members of the Crithian Empire. Each one showed the same impossible image, a human flag, not the old Earth flag, but something new. Something that seemed to shift and change even as they watched it flying above what had once been Crithian administrative centers. "What have you done?" Ziegther breathed. Elsa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We did what humanity has always done when faced with extinction. We adapted. We evolved. We became something you couldn't predict." Harry pulled up additional data streams. "See, when you bombed our cities, you missed something important. You destroyed our surface infrastructure, sure. But you didn't know about the deep labs, the facilities we'd built into Earth's mantle, the research stations we'd hidden in the dark matter shadows of our solar system." "Impossible," one of the conclave members whispered. "You scanned using Crithian technology," Elsa interrupted. "Technology designed to detect Crithian enemies, species that thought like you, that built like you. But we don't think like you, Admiral. We never did." Ziegther watched as the data continued to stream in. Each of the 17 worlds was reporting the same pattern: human forces appearing without warning, phasing through shields, bypassing security systems that had stood for 10,000 years. But they weren't conquering. They weren't killing, they were liberating. "The Valerians on Praxis 4, Harry said, highlighting one world. "Did you know they were poets before you conquered them? Their entire civilization was built around the creation and sharing of art. You turned them into mineral extractors, forced them to strip their own world bare." The display zoomed in, showing Valerians, insectoid beings with iridescent carapaces emerging from forced labor camps, guided by human soldiers who moved with practiced efficiency. But these weren't the terrified, desperate humans the Crithians had faced before. These were something new. "We found them in your databases," Elsa said softly. "Every species you'd conquered, every civilization you'd broken. We learned their languages, studied their cultures, understood what you'd taken from them, and then we went and gave it back." Harry finished. Ziegther's tactical mind finally caught up to the reality unfolding before him. "You're starting a rebellion. You think these broken species will fight for you?" "No," Elsa said, and now her smile was genuine. "We're not starting anything. We're finishing something you started when you decided Earth was just another world to crush under your empire." The holographic display shifted again. This time it showed Earth, but not the burnt, broken Earth the Crithians had left behind. This Earth was alive with activity? Massive structures rose from the radioactive surface, pulling themselves up from the deep labs like mechanical gods emerging from the underworld. Ships, thousands of them, each one built with technology that married human ingenuity with principles borrowed from species the Crithians thought they'd enslaved completely, filled the orbital space. You wanted to know how we survived? Harry asked. Here's the thing about trying to genocide a species that had just reached interstellar capability. We'd already started experimenting with technologies you couldn't imagine. Quantum entanglement communication, temporal shielding, dimensional phase shifting. But we weren't ready, Elsa added. We were children playing with fire. And you burned us for it. Ziegler watched as more reports flooded in. His empire wasn't just under attack, it was dissolving. World after world, the enslaved species were rising up, but not in the chaotic, easily crushed rebellions the Crithians had dealt with before. This was coordinated. This was precise. This was human. We spent the last 3 years in your databases, Harry said, his voice taking on a harder edge. We learned everything. Every weak point in your empire, every species you'd broken, every bit of technology you'd stolen. And we learned something interesting. Elsa stepped forward, her armor systems interfacing directly with the Crithian networks. Your empire isn't strong because you're superior. It's strong because you're parasites. You take what others build, crush what makes them unique, and force them to serve you. The display now showed the heart of the Crithian Empire, the throne world of Crith Prime, but something was wrong. The planetary defenses were offline. The fleet that guarded the homeworld was ... Where Ziegler began. Your fleet's fine, Harry interrupted. We didn't destroy it. We just convinced it to stand down. Impossible. Crithian warriors would never. Crithian warriors, Elsa said softly, are mostly conscripts from conquered worlds wearing Crithian armor. Did you really think we couldn't reach them? That we couldn't show them what we'd learned about your empire's true nature? Ziegler's 4 eyes widened in horror as he understood. The Crithian Empire's greatest strength, its ability to absorb conquered species into its military structure, had become its fatal weakness. We didn't come here to conquer you, Harry said, and his voice carried the weight of 3 billion graves. We came to show you what you created when you tried to exterminate us. The chamber's walls suddenly became transparent, revealing the void of space outside. And in that void surrounding the Eternal Dominion was an armada unlike anything the Crithians had ever seen. Ships from 17 liberated worlds flew in perfect formation. Valerian art ships that painted reality itself with their weapon systems. Therasian world ships that moved through dimensions the Crithians couldn't perceive. Mordek battle cruisers whose crews had finally remembered what it meant to fight for themselves rather than their conquerors, and at the center of it all, flying point like a spear aimed at the heart of empire, were the human vessels, sleek, deadly, and utterly unlike the desperate craft that had died by the thousands in Earth's defense. You wanted us to kneel, Elsa said, her voice carrying across every channel in the Crithian fleet. You wanted us to beg, to break, to disappear into your empire like every other species you'd conquered. Harry's holographic interface expanded, showing real-time feeds from across the Crithian Empire. On world after world, the same scene was playing out, enslaved species standing up, throwing off their chains and raising new flags above buildings that had stood as monuments to Crithian supremacy. Instead, Elsa continued, you taught us the most important lesson humanity ever learned. We're not alone in the universe. And we're not the only ones who refuse to kneel. Ziegler watched his empire crumble in real time. But it wasn't the violent collapse he would have expected from a rebellion. This was surgical, precise, almost ... compassionate. Human forces were disabling weapons but not destroying ships. They were liberating camps but not executing guards. They were dismantling an empire while building something new in its place. What do you want? Ziegler finally asked, his voice hollow. Nothing from you, Harry said simply. We already took it. Your databases, your technology, your dirty secrets. Everything that made your empire possible. We're giving it back, Elsa added. Every species you conquered, every culture you tried to erase, we're giving them the tools to rebuild. The holographic display changed one final time. It showed Earth, fully healed, its surface green and blue once more. But this wasn't the Earth that had existed before the Crithian invasion. This was something new, something that had grown from the ashes of genocide and emerged stronger, harder, more determined. You thought you were teaching us our place in the universe, Harry said. Instead, you taught us that the universe needs someone to stand up to bullies like you. Elsa's neural interface flashed, and suddenly the entire Crithian command staff found themselves frozen, their nervous systems hijacked by technology they couldn't comprehend. Not to kill them, but simply to ensure they watched. So watch, Elsa commanded. Watch as 17 species who forgot what freedom meant remember it. Watch as they rebuild what you destroyed. Watch as they forge something new, not an empire built on conquest, but an alliance built on shared survival. And no, Harry added, his voice soft but carrying the weight of Earth's dead, that humanity's flag now flies across your empire, not as conquerors but as liberators. We learned from you, Admiral. We learned exactly what kind of civilization we never want to become. The Eternal Dominion began to move, but not under Crithian control. Human systems had integrated seamlessly with the ship's core functions, and now it was being escorted peacefully but firmly toward a rendezvous point where representatives from the liberated worlds were gathering. You're going to stand trial, Elsa said. Not by humans, we don't get to decide your fate. You're going to face the species you enslaved, the civilizations you tried to erase, and they're going to choose mercy, Harry said, because that's what separates them from you. That's what separates all of us from you. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Elsa and Harry stood side by side, watching Earth's banner symbol, now recognized across 17 worlds, as a sign of liberation display across every screen in the Crithian vessel. You think they'll learn? Harry asked quietly. Elsa considered the question, her eyes fixed on the stars streaming past. Some will, some won't, but it doesn't matter anymore. The universe knows now that there's an alternative to empire. That strength doesn't have to mean domination. That humanity kneels for no one, Harry added, and that we'll raise the banner of freedom wherever we find it crushed. Elsa finished, behind them. In the bowels of the Eternal Dominion, Crithian soldiers were discovering that their prisoners, humans who had been captured in the initial invasion, were gone. Not executed, not escaped, but liberated by forces that had walked through walls and disappeared into quantum foam. The last transmission from the human fleet echoed across Crithian space, a message that would be remembered long after the Empire fell. You thought Earth would kneel. You thought wrong. Now we're raising the banner across your empire, not of conquest, but of liberation. Not of revenge, but of justice. This is humanity's answer to genocide. We survive, we remember, and we ensure no one else suffers what we suffered. The war is over. The healing begins now, and across 17 worlds. Species who had forgotten what their own flags looked like began to weave new ones, each thread a testament to survival. Each color a celebration of rediscovered identity. Earth's banner flew beside them, all not above, but among a symbol that had transformed from a planet's flag into a promise. Never again. Not to anyone, the Crithian Empire ended not with a bang, but with the quiet rustling of 17 different flags rising above worlds that had learned, from humanity's example, that the response to extinction wasn't surrender. It was evolution.